All right, good to see you. And good afternoon, evening, whatever. Hi, Dale.
I don't know who the one.
Hi, Dale. How are you?
Hi, Jerry.
How are you doing?
So, welcome to Journey.
To Journey. That's right.
Second edition.
Yes.
Maybe second.
Maybe second.
Okay.
Because we're. This will be episode 3.
Episode 3. Welcome to episode 3.
I'm so glad I could be part of the conversation.
You're not part of the conversation.
You're not.
I asked you to speak.
This is
Said over there, pretty socks. I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes.
He has magician socks on. We have
Pokey and Gumby.
Pokey and Gumby. I just have some light crimson.
It's an old man socks.
I have old man socks on today. I do. I play the old man. Hey, okay, but we're glad that we have an audience today with us.
It's unusual.
It's an unusual. We have a great audience because it's young people, and who better to have with us today than someone that loves to work with young people.
So, if you're watching this for the first time, the idea behind Journey is to bring someone on, Jerry and I, to talk to them kind of about their journey in life. And so we couldn't find anybody today, so we just settle for what we got.
I just know it's going to be a magical time.
He's never heard that before.
Yes.
I'm tingly all over.
I can tell. No, we're excited about you being here. We're excited about these young people being here with us today.
So
Quick.
We're glad Brian Staron's with us.
I was wondering when you were going to get around to my name.
Well, we figured everybody knows who you are anyhow.
Oh, no, only a few people.
Wow. So.
It gets better. You don't have to leave yet.
That's right.
When she found out who I was, she said, "Oh, him? I'm out of here."
All right. But again, this is Journey. It's where we talk about people's life experiences, where they come from. You know, how did you get to where you are? And so we have a list of questions that Dale and I will be talking some with Brian. But this is also going to be an audience precipitation. Perspiration, yeah.
You're right.
Participation. I was right. Participation. Audience participation. And we're going to field some questions from you guys as this goes on for the next, I don't know, 6 hours. Just kidding. It won't be that long. It won't be that long. But it'll be long enough. But we're excited about Brian. And Brian, Dale, you want to shoot him the first question?
So just kind of tell us a little bit about your journey. What brought you to where you are today? And please don't say a church name.
We killed that line, didn't you? I have been doing youth ministry on and off for since 2001 or 2 or no, longer than that. It's been since in the mid-90s or something. And I grew up not a member of the church. A lot of people don't know that. I was not a member of the church. I grew up in a home where I was constantly drilled to me that your life was God's gift to you. What you do with your life is your gift to God. Basically, that was the religion in my home. All good people go to heaven. And that's what I basically grew up with until I started dating my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, Carol, who was a member of the church. And I started going to church with her and going as her boyfriend. And then I started hearing things. And the people I started hearing from were some of the old school guys. You know, we're hearing from the Robert Taylor Jr.'s and the Garland Elkins and all those. So I was hearing things that I had never heard before. And then I started studying for myself. And when Carol and I were married, we continued and we were active at church. And a year after we were married, I was baptized. So that's what my journey was into the body, because it was of my own study. We had 2 sons. In 1991, we lived in Tennessee. My parents lived in Mississippi. And
so you're from Mississippi?
No, Tennessee is home. But my teenage years before we moved to Tennessee, my dad worked for the Panama Canal Company, so I was actually in Central America and lived there for my teenage years. Okay. And then moved back to 11th grade of high school. My maternal grandparents lived in Dyersburg, Tennessee. That's where we moved back to. And then in 1991, July 7th, there was an accident, a car accident that killed my mother, my father, my only sister, and her 2-year-old daughter. All 4 killed instantly. And it was kind of that thing that, you know, obviously it was a tragedy to go through, and I remember I never blamed God, but I asked God questions. And I think people have a misconception. It's okay to ask God questions. People throughout the Bible ask God questions. And about 2 years after that, one of the guys that was at our congregation was an insurance agent. He was having like a conference of agents together. And he said, I'd like you to come and talk to them, and maybe from the customer service standpoint, rather than why you need insurance, etc. So I went and I talked, and I found it kind of therapeutic to talk about it. You know, that was the first time I really got to express it. Well, then from there he says, why don't you talk to the youth group about it? Then we talked to another youth group about it, then another one, and the next thing you know, we're at Harding, we're at Freed, we're at CYCs, we're doing all those things, and our kids, our two boys, are able to be there with us, and we got more and more involved with speaking and doing area wides and teaching and stuff like that. Then we had an occasion where our youth minister at the time this was in January, he was leaving full-time youth work. He wanted to go in full-time mission work, but he gave the elders 6 months notice that we're leaving. In the summer we're going to be gone. And so they gave him 6 months to kind of find a replacement. And about a month after he gave the notice, the elders called me in for a meeting, and they said, we've got a question to ask of you. And I said, what's that? They said, have you ever considered youth ministry? And I said, no, not really. And they said, well, you realize you're doing youth ministry all over the place, you're just not doing it here with our youth group. And I said, well, Carol and I talked about it, we prayed about it, and here we are.
Wow. And you've been doing it?
And we've been doing this ever since, and we really have a love for young people and for helping and ministering where we can.
Awesome.
So before you were being paid to work with young people, you had another profession.
I am a magician. I've worked with Walt Disney Entertainment, Walt Disney Productions, Walt Disney Special Events. I've worked on the ships of the Disney Cruise Line. We did the 2015 season of America's Got Talent, which was
So what did you do on that show?
magic.
So did you make somebody disappear?
I got up there and tap dance. What did you think I was going to do?
Sing. Could you do me a favor?
What?
Could you make somebody disappear?
What'd you look at me for?
I'm also a mind reader.
Don't read his mind too much.
I know it.
It'll hurt.
It's a short story. This ain't my first rodeo, guys.
we figured that out. Oh, me. Well, coming to, I want to know something. Everybody talks about this deal that you did with Disney and the things that you did. I want to know about Teenage Brian. I want to know about Teenage Brian. I mean, yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I have, and our youth group will tell you that I tell them this.
Yeah.
The things that I did as a teenager, I would be embarrassed to sit here and tell you all about.
Okay. Well,
because it's the things that now I realize, but it was because of the home I grew up in. It's not that I had bad parents, but they were very permissive.
Right.
And it was the fact that as long as you're good, then you can do those, you do what you want to do as long as you're good to other people. Well, so in a way, I would not go back and redo those things, and I warn our young people and any young people that I can about those things. However, teenagers as they are going to not be perfect. None of us are. Mm-hmm. But now I'm in a unique position where I am able to say, been there, done it, got the t-shirt.
right.
Let's talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, let's correct the behavior. Let's find out what we can do to make it better. You know.
And because of that, and the reason why I wanted to hit the teenage thing is because, yeah, we've got a teenage audience here with us.
Yes.
And hopefully and prayerfully, a lot of teenagers will watch this video later on and listen to it in time to come.
So you mentioned Carol. Who are some of the other people that influenced you along the way that made a positive impression on you?
Probably biggest were her parents. Her parents. My mother-in-law, as much grief as I jokes about mother-in-law and all that stuff, and I still do those. Both have passed away, but her parents were big influences because I saw her dad, who was an elder at one time, And I mean, he'd be sitting at the kitchen table some night, and you'd just see him just writing in a notebook, and you just said, what are you doing? He says, I'm writing sermon. I'm writing a sermon that he never will deliver. He just wrote a sermon. And it was kind of, and I saw that, and I remember their patience with me in trying to study. I remember one time when Carol and I were dating, I think I told someone this story yesterday. I called, and this was before we had cell phones, folks. We had landlines, all right? So when you call landmines, so I called their house. Her mom answers the phone because we didn't have caller ID either. So you had to answer the phone to find out who was on it. I know this is primitive what we're talking to these people about, but she answered the phone, and I asked if Carol was there, and said, "Well, we just got in." I said, "Well, I tried to call earlier, and there was no answer." And she said, "Well, I've been to a meeting." Okay, and I thought, "Oh, what kind of meeting?" Now, you know where I'm going with this. It was a gospel meeting, but she referred to it as a meeting. And I, not knowing that, I thought she was at a meeting. And I'm like, okay, and I kept pressing her. What kind of meeting? Well, it was at church. I said, what, you get to make decisions at church? You know, and then she kind of explained, no, it was a gospel meeting. I said, okay, tell me what. And I remember having that conversation with her on the phone, and where I felt kind of stupid afterwards, but she was patient enough to say, because if you don't know what it is, I didn't know what it was. But if you tell somebody, hey, I'm going to a meeting, you're going to a meeting.
All right. So how old were you at this time when you met him? Carol, how old was he?
17, 18.
Okay, so so y'all are high school sweethearts.
We were high school sweethearts.
That's awesome.
And we've been married 34 years. 34 years this year. Well, this year will be 35.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, we're 34, but it'll be 35 this year.
So, Brian, you know, we've made some discussion and stuff. I think a question would come up is about, we talk to people about vision. What do you see the future, not just for Brian, but what's your vision for you, your wife? What's your vision for people around?
I would hope, I think that it would be, I think I would share this hope, especially with you two, that the world becomes a better place through Jesus. I really do mean that. There's so much evil and bad in the world, and I know for love or money, I wouldn't want to be a teenager today for anything because of what these young people and others face.
So it's obvious, like, drugs are not fixing it, they're not.
That's right, that's right.
Money is not fixing it.
Money's not the issue.
It's not
That's
fixing
right.
it. Sex
Technology,
isn't fixing it, technology isn't fixing it, popularity is not fixing it, politics is helping a whole lot.
Yeah.
That will be edited out here at this point.
Those things aren't fixing it, so you're right.
So there's going to have to be something else that will fix it. And if we can help facilitate that in a young person, because think about it this way, especially young people, the stuff that we talk to you about, the things that we try to instill in you, these are things that last for eternity. These don't just last until you become an adult. These just don't last till you go off to college or you get married or you have your own children. The stuff that we're trying to talk to you now about and minister to you about now are things that last for eternity. And that's a weighty subject on it. When I still have the opportunity to perform, and in fact, here in a couple of weeks, we're heading off to New Zealand and Australia to perform. And even though that's fun to do, you know, Dale, it's fun to do that stuff.
Yeah, I fly to Australia, New Zealand all the time.
But no, but that stuff doesn't have a lasting appeal. Yes, there's people that laugh about a joke you told 3 years ago or something like that, but that's it. And when you're with an audience that loves you for that moment, for that time that you're together. Let's face it, anything that goes past that it's in your head. So why not do something that has meaning?
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. Yes, we still get to perform. Yes, we still get to travel the world. But even though that's fun, that's not the important things in life. These young people and what we try to help them with, that's the stuff that's important. And that's why I cut way back on my performance schedule to do what we're doing now.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of the fact that you did that, I imagine there may be some questions in here that you might have. And right now, I'm just going to tell you that we have some of the kids from the Franklin church where Brian is youth minister. We have our young people from Spring Meadows here. And so if you have a question, we'll just raise your hand and we'll get to your question. And any questions open right now, my understanding.
Can you tell us about your favorite time doing magic?
Wow. I think my Disney was fun, and the stuff I got to do at Disney was pretty cool. But I think that the all-time favorite time I had performing was at the Magic Castle in Los Angeles, California, in Hollywood. The Magic Castle is a private, world-renowned club strictly for magicians. So to perform there, it would be akin to a country music artist getting to perform at the Grand Ole Opry. Mm-hmm. All right, it's right there. And the first time I performed at the Magic Castle in Los Angeles was, in my mind, that was pretty epic. That was pretty cool. That was the top of the heap.
Okay. Question back here in the back corner.
How did you get your knack for magic?
How did I start? 11 years old. I started, as I said, we lived in Panama and Central America. And 11 years old, I got a magic kit for Christmas. And there was a rope trick in that particular kit that really kind of fooled my parents, tricked my parents. And I thought, so then I started going to the libraries and reading about magic and reading about magicians and stuff like that. And that really got me kind of hooked. And then when I was 16 years old, I was first paid to do a show.
That really escalated things.
I was paid $35.
Whoa.
And I know it. I was high. I thought I was in high cotton at that point.
That's more than you make today.
That's more than I make now. So you've seen my show. But $35, I went and I bought one magic trick that I thought, $35 for this one particular magic. I still own that trick. It's in my collection of stuff. But
still haven't figured out.
Still haven't figured out how to do it. It didn't come with instructions. That was another $30. But it was a pretty piece. But so that's what started it. And when I was 16, I had won a talent competition. And part of the prize of winning that was that I got to open for Ray Charles. So when I was 16 was the first time that I was with somebody kind of cool on stage. And that was good. We had an interesting encounter.
There's a lot of jokes could go there.
Well, it was actually, it's a joke, but it was actually a true story. The curtain was set up. The orchestra and all his stuff was behind the curtain. My stuff was before the in front of the curtain. And I was backstage, and he came in with his entourage, being led obviously by the arm, but a good group of people with him. And they made the formal introductions. Ray, this is Brian Staron. He's the magician that has won this money. He's going to open the show for you. Ray, Brian, Mr. Ray Charles. And he reaches out his hand and we shake hands. And you never have one of those moments where words come out of your mouth that you can't grab fast enough to shove back in. I'm shaking hands with Ray Charles and I said, "Do you want to see a magic trick?" I have asked Ray Charles if he wanted to see a magic trick. His answer blew my mind.
The kids don't know who Ray Charles
Kids don't know who Ray Charles is a blind musician, by the way, guys.
Now the story makes a whole lot more sense.
Let's start over.
Okay, so they make the formal introductions backstage, but his answer blew my mind. He said, "Sure, kid, show me what you got."
And you tricked him.
And I thought, okay, so I did a coin trick.
Right.
And of course everyone's laughing and we're having a good time. And I'll never forget these words as though it was yesterday. He looks at me, he looked in my direction. And he said, "Tell you what, kid," he said, "it sounds like you know what you're doing." I said, "Well, thank you very much for being gracious." He said, "I'll make you a deal." I said, "What's that?" He said, "If you promise never go on stage and play the piano, I'll never go on stage and do a magic trick." I said, "Deal." And we shook hands and it was awesome.
Caroline, you got another question?
Yeah, which magic trick's most popular?
Ooh, that's a pretty.
Okay, let me turn that question around to you. All right, to what magic trick's the most popular? I've got it narrowed down to two. All right, what would you guys say would be the most popular magic trick?
Cards.
The cutting one where you.
Cutting a woman in half, what
Yeah.
else?
Pulling $1 million out of a hat.
Or a rabbit, pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Making a woman.
Those would be the two that
If
would
I had
probably
a
be.
choice,
I'd rather have $1 million than the rabbit. Anybody else? Yes.
What was the greatest impact you've had on anybody as both a magician and a youth minister?
As a magician, there have been young people who I have, for the sake of a better word, mentored, that have gone on to do things that's kind of cool. As far as a youth minister, when I see somebody obey the gospel and I have the opportunity to baptize someone, and even though it's not about me, when I know that their sins are gone, there's nothing greater than that. And I think you guys would agree with that.
Absolutely.
When you see somebody that, and I think you and I have talked about this in Ministers in Mocha, when you teach somebody, there's a moment that you guys will know when you see the light click on. That to me is worth whatever we do. When I see that light click on, that's kind of cool. Think,
right.
Dale. Read my mind. Coolest person I ever met. Go.
Jerry Elder.
And second to Jerry
Muhammad Ali.
was Muhammad Ali.
There you go.
I was able to meet Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was a magic
It's a good
enthusiast.
story. It's a good story.
He really enjoyed magic. He loved watching magic. He frequented the Magic Castle and he would go to magic shows. One time I was performing at the boardwalk and I was doing a close-up set. So I had a table where I'm doing card tricks and coin tricks, etc. And he came walking over. He was with his sister. His family was there on vacation. And of course now at this point, Muhammad Ali is standing at the table. No one's watching me. They're all looking, it's Muhammad Ali, and they're all trying to get pictures and stuff like that. There was this one particular trick I do where I have someone pick a card and then I have them sign it and put it back into the deck and I make something magical happen with that card. Well, please understand, when I did these shows, it was like I was on autopilot. It was mechanical. I get in that mode, the same lines come out, the timing comes out, the whole thing. So I'm doing this card trick and I get done and boom, there's his card on the table. And I have this silly line at the end of the routine that I have done for years. And I hear it, and you can keep the card as a souvenir. That's the French word for let's get rid of the trash as we make it. And I gave him the card and he walked away. And I thought, stupid, stupid, stupid. I had Muhammad Ali's autograph on a card that I could have just as easily put back in the deck and kept, but I gave it to him and he walked away with that card. And to this day, that has always haunted me, that he walked away when I could have had that autograph card.
You know what you call that card today? Retirement.
Yeah, and it's probably,
Yeah.
it was probably thrown away at the
No, his
hotel.
family took it home and framed it.
I'm sure they did.
So, okay, guys, thank y'all for your questions on this. We're gonna close this out. So, there's one more question though that I think you've done magic. You've impacted literally millions of lives through people that've seen your magic. You have impacted thousands upon thousands of lives, 15,000 at CYC. Throughout youth ministry, you've seen a lot of people. How do you want Brian Staron to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered as somebody who saw the important things in life. There's The Greatest Showman, was a little movie that was out last year. And we're at the end and he says, I drank champagne with kings and queens, the politicians praised my name. But those were someone else's dreams. I've done all that. I've been to the top of the mountain, but that doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. What matters is God, His kingdom, and getting as many people to heaven as possible. I would want to be remembered as someone who loved a good joke, that had a good time in life, got to do some wonderful things, but more importantly, I was a good husband, a good father, and a minister of the gospel.
Thanks for sharing your journey with us.
Well, thank you so much. It's a good journey, and God writes a chapter every day. We get to write a new page every day. And whatever your journey is, wherever you're at, guys, that's not where it has to end. Your past mistakes do not define you. If I was to live as my past mistakes have haunted me, then I wouldn't be sitting here. But your past mistakes are just that, they're mistakes, and they can't define you. They don't define you, and they shouldn't define you. So don't get down on yourself when something bad happens. Think about David. You know, he made mistakes and then more mistakes to cover up the mistakes, but yet he's a person after God's own heart. So thank you all for this opportunity.
Thank you for doing it. Folks, thanks for watching us, and hope that you'll share this with people out and that others can join in with the journey with us.